Welcome to today's edition of the IntoTexas AI podcast. It's your look at AI news and trends impacting Texas. I'm your host, Shannon Belew. Let's get started. Texas businesses are increasingly all in on AI, and workers are benefiting too. In today's podcast, we're going to take a closer look at a new survey from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas that offers a snapshot of how Texas businesses are actually using AI and why. While the headlines often focus on robots and technology replacing workers, the reality emerging from Texas is more nuanced. Businesses are facing economic uncertainty, rising costs, tariff pressures, labor shortages, and growing competition. And increasingly, many of them see AI not as a futuristic experiment, but as a practical business tool to help offset some of those challenges. The latest survey results from the Dallas Fed reveal and reinforce what we've seen firsthand. Texas companies aren't primarily adopting AI because they're chasing the latest technology trend. They're adopting it because they're trying to solve actual business problems and getting results. What the Dallas Fed found. So, the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas surveyed businesses across Texas through its monthly Texas Business Outlook survey. Each survey, which goes out to the manufacturing and service sectors in this case, also includes an additional set of special questions each month. For May, the topic was artificial intelligence. With just over 300 executives responding to the survey, the findings show that AI adoption is accelerating rapidly among Texas firms, and that should not be a surprise. The 2026 results show that 66% of Texas businesses responding to the survey say they are using AI. And that's up moderately from last year's reported use of AI, which came in around 59%. But if you compare that to 2024, the results then were only 38% said they were using AI. So that data highlights a remarkable jump in a relatively short period of time. Now, what's also particularly interesting is that the survey wasn't conducted among Silicon Valley startups or venture backed AI companies, right? These are ordinary Texas businesses. They're manufacturers, service providers, professional firms, retailers, realtors, healthcare organizations, businesses that wake up every day focused on their customers, on the margins, staffing, and future growth. And increasingly, those businesses are turning to AI. So, why Texas businesses are moving beyond the experiment phase? Well, here's another key takeaway from the findings. It isn't simply that more businesses are using AI, but it does also appear that they are moving beyond casual experimentation and starting to see real results. In fact, for those already using AI, the survey asked executives to describe the state of internal use of the technology. Now, while it is clear that many companies do remain in that experimentation and testing phase, actually more than half did report that, quote, AI tools were used regularly by many employees, end quote. So the responses to that question actually rose by 30 points compared to 2024. And now, of those actively using the technology, the vast majority of respondents considered that AI tools were actually being integrated into their core business processes and or operations. Now, in transparency, I should clarify at this point that the number of eligible respondents dropped to only 43 for that particular question. So we are talking about a much smaller data set. But when you switch over and start talking about productivity in general, there's really no denying that the vast majority of executives are seeing results. In fact, with over 200 responses, 71% reported measurable productivity gains from those employees who are using AI inside of their businesses. Now, productivity improvement was also one of the most commonly cited benefits. And honestly, Productivity is often where new technologies either prove their value or they fail to gain traction. Many technologies generate excitement, but not all can hold up to the hype and generate really consistent, measurable business outcomes. But we're seeing that with AI, at least in these results. Now, the Dallas Fed results also suggest that a growing number of Texas businesses believe that AI is delivering enough value to justify continued investment. So if you're getting the productivity gains, you're seeing positive increases in business outcomes, why wouldn't you continue investing? Makes sense. But that's often the moment when adoption does begin to accelerate, right? When those things happen. So it's not because executives are chasing a trend, but because they do see practical business results and benefits. And if you look at the rest of the economic survey for the month of May, executives in general are concerned and have a mixed outlook on the future from a standpoint of business in general. Many business leaders cited economic pressures and uncertainty from rising cost of doing business to supply chain concerns. Now, a quick note that the manufacturing sector was actually more optimistic about the future outlook than the service industry in this last survey. And let me be clear that for either sector, there was not a direct correlation drawn regarding AI adoption helping to mitigate business anxiety or any of those operational challenges. That said, I do think that Texas firms who have integrated AI into those core business processes are likely to see AI as a potential way to offset higher cost and maintain competitiveness. Historically, major waves of automation happen when businesses face cost pressures. If costs are rising and uncertainty is growing, productivity becomes more important than ever, and AI promises productivity. Whether it ultimately delivers on that promise, well, it always remains to be seen. But companies clearly believe it's worth exploring, and they must be seeing something, right? As noted in these survey results. But now, what about jobs? Because whenever we discuss AI adoption, inevitably the question is, what does this mean for workers? What does it mean for my job? The Dallas Fed has been studying that question as well. And so far, the answer appears, well, a bit more complicated than many recent headlines suggest. Earlier research found that most Texas firms using AI reported little immediate impact on overall employment. Instead, many businesses said that AI was helping employees perform tasks more efficiently rather than eliminating those jobs outright. So, back to that productivity benefit, right? They're seeing that and realizing that. Now, fast forward to the newer research, it does suggest that perhaps the long term effects on jobs could be a little more mixed. So, some jobs might be augmented, others may be automated entirely. Certain skills will become more valuable, while others decline in importance. So, the question isn't simply, will AI replace workers? I think the more useful question may be, how will AI change the work that workers perform? Well, several comments from the survey highlighted that AI is not replacing works, right? Instead, it's helping current employees to do their job better. In fact, one executive commented that those embracing and learning AI are actually becoming more valuable to the business and increasing their job security for those roles at the same time. I thought that was a great comment. By the way, this is one of the things I really appreciate about this particular survey. It does allow you to go in and see the data, including the comments that are essentially written in versus just the standard response, formatted responses to the questions. So you do get to see a little more insight in terms of what leaders are thinking about. And again, just want to reinforce this is from manufacturing sector and from the services sector. Now, another executive in the comments section also explained how their company conducts weekly AI training to help employees learn how to use AI as a productivity tool, which the executive said was, quote, as intended for AI, right? Now, that company also, the executive said they do not see the tool as a replacement for people. And in fact, the survey in general found many businesses Expect AI to continue down that same path, not replacing jobs, but rather altering the types of workers and skills that are needed while expecting overall employment levels to remain pretty stable. Now, that aligns with what we're hearing from employers, definitely, across the state of Texas as well as nationally. They're looking for employees who can work alongside AI. We've talked about this before. Companies are increasingly moving out of that experimentation and playful state with AI, right? And now they're really trying to focus on what they do with it. And to really get business outcomes and productivity from it, you need employees who understand how to work alongside AI versus just, they need to understand how to use it effectively, essentially, right? We've seen a lot of data recently where companies are saying, especially companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, who track this, diligently, but you're seeing this change from when AI first came out, and again, we're in that experimentation and playfulness state. Employees are just interacting with it one way, right? You ask a question, you get an answer, and that's it. As employees better understand the technology, as businesses better understand the outcomes that they're looking for from the technology, there's now this increased focus on how to better engage with it, right? We talk about the employees who will really do well with the technology are those who increase their critical thinking skills, the ones who are more strategic and understand how to engage with versus just accept answers from the tools, right? And so that's really what we're talking about here. Businesses are looking for those employees who learn and understand how to use it effectively and work alongside of it. Now, I will say, just in general, one of the reasons that this survey caught my attention and why I wanted to talk about it on IntoTexas AI is that in some ways it does challenge some of the extremes of the AI debate that we continue to hear. You've got one side where people still think that AI is overhyped and it's not really going to change much in the long run. And then you've got the other side where there are predictions that just entire industries are going to disappear overnight, right? But as always, the reality is somewhere in between, right? It sits in the middle. And I think that Texas businesses, what we're seeing is that they're adopting AI at a meaningful pace, but they're doing so pragmatically. So while, yes, as the survey indicated, there are still a good bit of companies who say they're still experimenting and they're testing and they're trying to find those pilots that really work so that they can then scale them. Consistent message here, though, across all of them is that Texas businesses are looking for those operational improvements. They're trying to solve specific business problems. They want those outcomes that are meaningful to the business. So it's less about hype and more about results. It's less theory and more practicality. The businesses succeeding with AI are finding ways to serve customers better, to reduce costs, and help employees work more effectively. I think the latest Dallas Fed survey provides that valuable reminder for all of us that AI adoption isn't happening in a vacuum. It does happen within the broader context of economic realities, which include uncertainties. It includes workforce changes, competitive pressures, and general business strategies that have to be considered. Texas businesses are increasingly treating AI not as a future technology, but as a present, here, today business tool that enables real business outcomes. Well, that's all for today's episode of the Into Texas AI podcast. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, to watch, and if you like what you hear and you want to know more and get further insights and commentary about how AI is reshaping Texas, I invite you to watch again, listen again, please share, drop us a comment. I'm happy to engage in a conversation. And please do subscribe. As always, I'm your host, Shannon Belew, and I'll see you next time.